Ok. So thank you very much. Je vous souhaite bienvenue dans cette classe. C'est très important pour nous d'avoir cette classe aujourd'hui. I want to welcome you to this class. It's important we have this class this morning. And I want to appreciate your presence here. We already have the first section of this lecture where we had a live meeting last week. We had only 10 of us in the class, and you have just 11 of us currently as we speak in the live class right now. We're still expecting them to come. So I'm going to do a recap of what we studied last week in class, number one. And then I'm going to proceed further. I'm going to talk about the video you watched, and I'm going to try and bring out the mistakes most of you made, and then I'm going to finish up what we started last week. So let's delve into it. For what were in class last week, we began our interaction and we looked at negations, la négation en français. Now, talking about negations in French generally, I was able to establish with us that we have the main word for negation as ne pas, N-E, then pas, P-A-S. And for those that were in the class, I also made mention of the fact that negation is used. We put the first part of the negation, no, before the verb, and then we put the second part of the negation, pas, after the verb. Now, apart from that, we talked about quite a lot of things. Sorry about that noise. It will soon go off. We are just doing some things around the house. I'm not in school right now. Why are you hearing that noise? So, as far as negation is concerned, I was able to establish the fact that apart from no pas, we have other forms of negation. And I gave us quite a list of them. We use them in sentences. I will send a video to that effect later on before the end of the semester. But for now, let's delve in and see what we have today. In the video you watched, I sent you a series of videos. One of them dealt with how to ask questions in French. Comment poser une question en français? How do we ask questions in French? And I'm looking at what most of you did. Some of you got it, but quite a lot of you missed it. So I will touch that very briefly now. Then I go to the interaction that brought us here today, which is the Passé composé that we began last week. Now, talking about how to ask questions in French. In your exams, you are going to find out some stuff that I'm going to be relating with right now. And what we call the inversion, l'inversion du sujet et le verbe. That is the inversion of the subject and the verb. Now, in that particular example, that exercise you did, that video you watched, I talked on all of them basically. And from the exercise you've done so far, I found out that some of us are still trying and we are battling with some of them. So I'm logging in now from my laptop. I want to deal with what you've done, attend to the assignment right away, and then we continue. Now, for the very first person that submitted, I'm not going to call your name. I will just read out what the person did and then bring out the area we had issues, and then I continue. Now, you are going to find that when you talk about asking questions, the first thing is the inversion of the subject and the verb position. If you hear that, type that in the comment section, the inversion of the subject and the verb position. Now, for that inversion of the subject and the verb position, what you are going to find out is that you bring the verb before the subject, which most often has to be a personal pronoun. Now, 74 people have submitted the work, and then let's look at it together now. The very first one, I will pick the examples. Now, forms of asking question in French. We have what we call the inversion, number one, mode. Number two, what we call the use of esco. Number three, you have what we call the inversion, the use of esco, and then you have as well as inversion, esco. You have intonation. Basically, those three: inversion, esco, and intonation. So let me talk about them. Now, the very first person that submitted, he said esco tu aimes les légumes. That was perfect. Now, to use esco to ask a question, you're going to give me questions in the exam. Let's say we have something like this. Let's say we give you an example. Nous avons un enfant. Like this, we have a child. I will tell you to use that sentence and ask a question. What we are basically asking you to do in that particular context is that you are going to put that esco before the nous. Esco nous avons un enfant. And the very first person did quite well with that exercise. Now, for the second person that submitted, it began with for the use of esco again. Est-ce qu'il pleut aujourd'hui? He also got it. So for the use of esco, you did well with that word. So that is going to be that. Then the next thing is the use of rising intonation. Rising intonation, we call it l'intonation. Now, what we are saying basically, as far as that is concerned, is that you just put a question mark for those kind of sentences. Let's take this for example. I give you the sentence, ils sont là, they are there. Ils sont là, they are here. If I say make this sentence ils sont là, I-L for S for the il, then sont, S-O-N-T, then là, L-A accent grave, ils sont là, I say make a sentence with that. What you are required to do for intonation, you put a question mark at the end, meaning ils sont là, it becomes a question. And so some of you got that quite all right, but somebody also missed it as I was looking through what you have done thus far. Now the next thing is the use of tag question, n'est-ce pas? N'est-ce pas? I'm repeating what we have in the video as a form of revision, and then we'll go to our passé composé now. We have n'est-ce pas. Let's say for n'est-ce pas, we call it the tag question. And then somebody said, il est gentil, n'est-ce pas? Is kind, isn't it? So when you put n'est-ce pas, you have turned that particular thing to a question and is going to answer. So that is how it basically works. So that is the tag question, n'est-ce pas? Now, the other thing I want to talk about, most of you did quite well in that one, is apart from writing intonation, the inversion of the subject and the verb. So when you're inverting the subject and the verb position, there is something you want to take note of. Number one of them is that when the verb begins with a vowel and then you have il or elle as the personal pronoun, you have to put what we call the composé T to make what we call l'enchaînement and liaison in French. Let's say il a le bic or il a un cahier. He has a biro. Il a un cahier. He has a biro. You will find that in such scenario, you're going to be a-t-il le bic. We are going to put a T before that il because the verb begins with a vowel and the personal pronoun is also beginning with a vowel. So for scenarios like that, you put a T and then you join the verb with that T with an hyphen to give you that particular form of asking question. Give me a second, let me fix my light. So I'm sorry for that. I just had to fix that so I can see my face problem. Now, having said that, we want to delve in right now into what we have for the day, and that is the conjugation of verbs. Now, in those videos I sent to you, for those of you who took time to watch those videos, bravo. I'm going to run through them now. If you have your notebook with you wherever you are right now, pick up your notebook, your pen, and your notebook. write this verb. I'm going to use the verb parler all through. And then I'm going to use the verb aller. I'm going to use the verb manger, parler, aller, manger. Please, you can type that in the comment section so that we'll see it together. Parler, aller, manger. Now, talking about conjugating verb in the passé composé, the past tense, we did that in class briefly because of our time, but I want to deal with it right now. In the videos I told you to watch, it's all about conjugating verbs in the present tense. What we call le présent de l'indicatif. Le présent de l'indicatif. Now, in that present indicative mode, let's say we have the verb parler because I'm speaking right now. I'm going to have my personal pronoun. And then I'm going to have my verb. That's the way to conjugate it. Je parle, tu parles, il parle, elle parle, nous parlons, vous parlez, il parle, elle parle. Now, when I have that, I've conjugated a verb. I speak or I'm speaking. You speak or you are speaking. He speak or he's speaking. That's the present tense or the present tense. To put the verb in what we call passé composé, good. Parler, aller, manger. For your parler, aller, manger, put arrow in that your parler and put arrow in that your manger to make it the infinitive. Thank you very much. That should be rook aware. Thank you so much, Kate, also for writing them out for us. Now, let's continue. In conjugating this verb, I use my personal pronoun, your je, your tu, your il, your elle. That's the essence of that video I sent to you. Now, having known how to conjugate the verb in le présent de l'indicatif, that's fine. The next thing we need what we call the participe passé of the verb. Now, the participe passé of the verb is what you need with the present tense of the verb avoir for you to conjugate any avoir or être, right? To conjugate any verb, what we call the passé composé. We talked about that in class last week. I'm only going through it now before I delve deeper into what we are doing. Now, for regular verbs, ER verbs, take for example, parler. You remove your arrow, add a sound aigu, you have what we call the participe passé. Now, for IR verb, let's say for a verb like rempli, IR verb, you remove the R also, and then the I there gives you the participe passé. But for third group verbs, it's not like that. And so, I'm going to be telling you to conjugate verbs in the exam. Certainly, yes and no. That is the answer to that question. However, let's apply it in practical terms. What are you supposed to know about conjugating the verbs in passé composé? The key things to note. Let's say we have a verb like rencontrer. R-O-E-N C-O-N T-R-E-R-O. That's the verb rencontrer. Now, with your knowledge of the verbs, how to conjugate it in présent de l'indicatif, I expect that you can conjugate je rencontre, tu rencontres, il rencontre, elle rencontre. Nous rencontrons, vous rencontrez, il rencontre, elle rencontre. That is for that particular verb in present. Now, since it's an ER verb, how do I put rencontrer in passé composé? The answer is simple. I remove the R in the infinitive. It will now give me R E N C O N T R E. The E will have a call accent aigu. That will give me the participe passé of the verb rencontrer. I want to put rencontrer in passé composé. Now I know the participe passé. The next thing I'm going to ask myself, is this verb a reflexive verb? When I say reflexive verb, those who are in class last week will understand how that reflexive verb I introduced what we call reflexive pronoun. So, S-E. But in this context, there's nothing like so in that rencontrer. So that verb is not reflexive. That's number one thing. Number two, is this verb a movement verb? It's not a movement verb. In other words, with those two criteria satisfied, I'm going to know that I'm going to need the verb avoir to conjugate the verb rencontrer in passé composé. So I'm going to conjugate number one. You can start writing the verb avoir from je to il to elle in the plural. J'ai, tu as, il a, elle a. Nous allons, nous avons, vous avez, ils ont, elles ont. Now, having conjugated la voix in present, that might rencontrer, that I remove the R and put a contigue, I will not copy that rencontrer in front of all of them. I have made that verb a verb in the past tense. Now, what is not the meaning of that verb rencontrer? Yeah, rencontrer, that's it. Kate, you got it, but add an arrow to it to make the verb. Add an arrow to it, that's the spelling. Add an arrow to it. That's the infinitive. Therefore, participe passé, remove the arrow, put a contigue in that last E there. Now, when I have j'ai rencontré, it means I met, not I have met. Remember, the verb avoir means to have. It doesn't mean I have met. No, it means I met. If I say tu as rencontré, it means you met. If I say il a rencontré, it means il met. If I say elle a rencontré, it means she met. If I say nous avons rencontré, it means we met. If I say vous avez rencontré, that's the plural, meaning you met. Let's say you met somebody. And when I say ils ont rencontré, elles ont rencontré, it means they met, they met. Now let's use that in an exam context. Say, for example, I give you the verb elle. You can write it down with L, E-L-L-E, then put your hyphen, L, hyphen. The next thing is, we have rencontré in brackets. I say, elle dash rencontré un ancien étudiant dans la rue. That is, she met a former student in the street. Elle dash rencontré un ancien étudiant dans la rue. She met a former student in the street. Now, these are the options. Let's say I give you elle rencontré. And then I give you a rencontré. I give you avait rencontré. And I give you a rencontré with double E. Your answer is going to be elle a rencontré, a rencontré, et space, then you rencontré, R-O-E-N, C-O-N, T-R-E accent aigu. That will be your answer. It cannot be a rencontré because that is not a movement verb, so you cannot use avoir, être to conjugate the passé composé of that particular verb. So that's the thing you must take note of. Now that's for a regular verb. Let's take another example. Let's pick the verb être, to be. You have je suis, tu es, il est, elle est. Nous sommes, vous êtes, ils sont, elles sont. That is the verb être in the present de l'indicative. That's the auxiliary verb. Now I want to conjugate the verb être in passé composé. What am I required to do? Now understand that to conjugate the verb être in passé composé, you will use the present tense of the verb avoir. Yes. Then the participe passé of the verb être. I did not teach these ones last week because I'm going to deal with them here in this class. Now let's say you have that être now to conjugate. Now you can conjuguer avoir from j'ai, tu as, il a, elle a, nous avons, vous avez, ils ont, elles ont. That is avoir in présent. What is now the participe passé of the verb être? It is called été. I accent aigu, T, I again accent aigu. So to put être in passé composé, you're going to be j'ai été, one, tu as été, il a été, elle a été. That is the way you conjugate the verb in what we call the passé composé. We'll have more practical section on that by tomorrow. I'm just introducing them. We're going to be using the Zoom class. We're going to adjust the time tomorrow. Instead of morning, we'll look for a time in the evening for that particular class so that most people can participate and your data and then your phones will be fully charged. But let's continue. Let's say we give you another verb, third group verb, boire. Boire, to drink. Je bois, tu bois, il boit, elle boit, nous buvons, vous buvez, ils boivent, elles boivent. That is the présent de l'indicatif. That is the present tense of that particular verb. Good and fine. However, to put the verb in passé composé is not a reflexive verb, number one. Number two, it's not a movement verb. So we're going to be using the verb avoir as the auxiliary to conjugate the verb in what we call the passé composé. Now the next thing is, what is the participe passé of that particular verb? For boire, it is called bu. B-U. Somebody, can you type it in the comment section? Bu. B-U. Bu. That is the participe passé of the verb boire. The way you conjugate rencontrer, you conjugate avoir again in the présent. Let me give you some few seconds to do that. In le présent de l'indicatif, j'ai, tu as, il a, elle a. Nous avons, vous avez, ils ont, elles ont. Now, with that avoir conjugated, take the participe passé of the verb boire. That is bu. B-U. Bu. Write it in front of them. You are going to have, we're going to have j'ai bu, tu as bu, elle a bu, nous avons bu, vous avez bu. Ils ont bu, elles ont bu. Now what that means is this. It means you are saying, I drank. You drank. Not I have drank. It's I drank. That have does not come when you're interpreting in English. I drank. You drank. He drank. She drank. We drank. You drank. They drank. They drank. So that is how good, that is it. Ore odu sonya. That is bu. You got it. You got it. That is the participe passé of the verb. So that is that context. Now let's say in an exam condition, this is how we're going to test you. We will give you the verb in brackets. We'll do a practical tomorrow, more on that. I'll give you the verb in brackets. You are going to find that we're going to give you 4 different options below. Let's say I give you vous dash, boire, and verre d'eau. I want to say you drank a glass of water. That's the meaning of that sentence. Vous dash, in bracket, boire, B-O-I-R-E, boire. And then un verre d'eau. That is, you drank a glass of water. The answer is going to be, out of this option, you have à boire, you have à boire, you have avez bu, you have avez bu. The answer is going to be avez bu, because it's the vous personal pronoun we are using as well as this sentence is concerned. So take note of that. It is going to come handy. At the end of this lecture, hopefully I'm going to download the lecture. It's going to be online. I will try and make some editorial work on it, possibly upload it again for you if I have the time, but I'm not sure. So make sure you are taking notes. It's very, very important. So we have seen the verb être, we have seen the verb boire, we have seen the verb rencontrer. Now let's take another verb. We call it the verb connaître, to know somebody. Connaître is spelled as C-O-N-N-A-I, but the I is going to have what we call accent circonflexe, chapeau, accent circonflexe, like this, on top of the I. You have that, then T-R-O-E, connaître. That is the verb to know, in the infinitive in French, the verb to know. Now, when you have connaître as a verb to know, you are going to conjugate it. Connaître is not a pronominal verb, a reflexive verb. Connaître is not also a movement verb. And so you are going to conjugate connaître using your avoir also. We're going to come to the one I'm going to be using être for very soon. But let's continue the one of avoir. You conjugate your avoir again. J'ai, tu as, il a, elle a, nous avons, vous avez, ils ont, elles ont. Now, for that particular verb you're going now, the participle passé of the verb connaître is called connu. It is spelled as C-O-N-N-U. Now, you write it in front of all of them. They have conjugated. It now be I knew, you knew, he knew, she knew, we knew, you knew, they knew, they knew. So that is how you conjugate the verb connaître, and then you have it. Now let's apply it to an exam situation. Mind you, all these examples I'm giving you, they are from past questions. I'm not teaching you by just manufacturing the questions. These are past questions that students faced some few years ago, and I believe using past questions will put in the exam condition from beginning and give you an edge over your mates. So you don't want to miss our class anytime we are dealing with it. Now let's look at this particular example. We're dealing with connaître. Vous dash connaître ma femme is a question. Remember, rising intonation. Vous dash in brackets connaître ma femme. Akbo Yibo is going to not be Jobi, it's going to be J bu. J apostrophe AI before the bu. J bu. That is for that particular one. And so you have that particular sentence. I read that. Nous, vous, pardon, dash. In bracket you have your connaître. And then you have ma femme, then a question mark. That's the sentence. Vous dash, connaître ma femme. The options are as follow. Avez connaît. Avons avez connu. Avez connu. Avez connu. Now, our answer is going to be vous avez connu. C-O-N-N-U will be the connu. Then avez. Now, that connu will not take an E, an X, or any other thing attached to it. That is how it is done. So take note of that. It's very, very important. We spent half an hour already. I want to take your question thus far because I'm going to another form of Passé composé right now. So let me have your question wherever you are. Just type your question. Yes, tu as bu, you got it. Good, j'ai bu, okay. Vous avez connu, that's correct. You got it now. So let me have your question. And mind you, at the end of this class, I'm going to give you exercises, 10 of them. You are going to answer in your Google Workspace for me. So make sure you're paying attention. You need every knowledge. So let me have your question if you have anyone before I go to the next form. All right. Arasumwa, JBU, that's correct. You got it now? That's correct. Okay, you have a question, please type your questions now. Anybody, areas you don't understand yet, please. We have 5 minutes to do that and I will continue with the lecture. I'm waiting for your questions. I'm seeing your comments. Thank you so much. That's okay, but I need more. I need questions now. Questions now. Okay. Now, Shinyere Kate, that's your il and el, that's the singular. It's going to be a connu, not on. Yes, it's going to be a connu. It's going to be j'ai connu. Mind you, you must conjugate the avoir very well. J'ai connu. Princess, it is j'ai bu, not je bu. J'ai, conjugate avoir first of all. J'ai apostrophe ai before the bu. That is how to go about that one. So, good. Nous avons connu, vous avez connu. But that your il and elle, that's the singular. It's only when you have it at the plural. Il, elle, on connu. That is correct. That is for kids. It's okay. Please let me get your feedback. I want to be sure you are following me and you are grasping what we are dealing with. That's the reason I send those videos to you to watch and master the present tense of conjugation. Okay, we have 1 more minute to go. And then I'll be done with this session of questions. And I will continue dealing with the good. You have corrected it. That is Osinashi. Il, elle, a connu. That's correct. That's correct. That's correct. The next person, please. Any other question? Type your comments. Type your questions now. Okay. Shefi, you say you don't understand this topic. All right. Let me try and bring you up to speed. What we are dealing with right now is called the past tense in French. In 100 level, you were taught how to conjugate your present tense. And I sent video to the Google Classroom. I sent a list of videos on first group verb and second group verb, on reflexive verb, tricky verbs, how to conjugate them. And I told you to watch those videos because you need those knowledge. Class. However, to conjugate a verb in the past tense, you need 3 things. Number 1, you need your personal pronoun. Somebody, can you write that for us? Personal pronoun. Number 2, the participe passé of any of the auxiliary verb, avoir or être, is needed. Number 3, you also have example. You also have what called the participe passé of the verb. Now, I got your question, Timothy. You said I'm using irregular verbs. You are correct. I'm going to come to regular verbs very soon. And for regular verb, I've already used reconnaître. It's a regular verb. But let's use parler now. So, how do we conjugate parler in the past tense? I'll write my personal pronoun from je, my tu, your il, your elle, your nous, your vous, il, elle, the plural forms. That's the first thing to do. The next thing to do, the verb I'm conjugating, I'm using parler now, a regular verb for example. Parler is not a movement verb, number 1. Parler is not a reflexive verb. That means I'm going to use the auxiliary of the verb avoir to conjugate the passé composé of the verb parler. I will now have j'ai. I will have to conjugate avoir in the present tense now. J'ai, tu as, il a, elle a, nous avons, vous avez, ils ont, elles ont. When I've done that, I go to the next thing. The next thing I'm going to be dealing with is put the participe passé of the verb parler in front of all the avoir, present tense, and personal pronoun I just conjugated. Where I had j'ai, parler, participe passé is P-A-R-O-L-E accent aigu. I'm going to add that participe passé to that particular j'ai. When I become j'ai parlé, meaning I spoke. Tu as parlé, you spoke. Il or elle a parlé, he spoke, she spoke. Nous avons parlé, we spoke. Vous avez parlé, you spoke. Il or on or elle ont parlé, they spoke. So, let me get your feedback now. Chefy, can you give me your feedback? Do you understand what I'm dealing with right now? I want to hear from you, Chefy. Okay, Mildred, you say you don't understand anything. I'll take it over again. We're dealing with conjugating the past tense in French. Precious, vous avez connu, that's correct. Now, in that vous avez connu, precious root, there are three things there. Number one, the personal pronoun vous, meaning you. Number two, you have what we call the past, we have avoir. You have avoir in the present tense. That is the have there. Number three, you have connu. That is the participe passé of the verb connaître. So those are the three things you need to conjugate the verb. However, for you to choose which auxiliary to use before adding the participe passé of the verb, you need to determine what type of verb is that. Is it a movement verb? Is it a reflexive verb? That's the first thing you want to look at. Now, when you have looked at that, you now ask yourself, if it's not a movement verb and a reflexive verb, that means I'm using avoir to conjugate the passé composé. Like we did for connect. But now, let's pick the verb aller, everybody. But if I go there, Chefy, it's going to be j'ai parlé. You must conjugate avoir first. Avoir must be there. J'ai parlé. J'ai parlé is compulsory. So it's not je parlé, it's j'ai parlé. Your parlé is correct. So Chefy, can you write it correctly now? J'ai apostrophe AI, that's your avoir, to have parlé. Now, come now to the verb aller, everybody. Write aller. If you write aller is je vais, tu vas, il va, elle va, nous allons, vous allez, ils vont, elles vont. That's your present tense. But to put aller in past tense, aller is a movement verb. Number one. Correct. Precious, you've gotten it. That's j'ai parlé. So, Chefy, you can see the comment of Precious there. That's the correct thing in passé composé. Now, aller is a movement verb. Now, for movement verbs and reflexive verb, that's the second part we're coming to now, you use the verb être as the auxiliary to conjugate them. That means you have to conjugate the verb être in the present tense and then add the participe passé of the verb. Now, for avoir, there is nothing like agreement in number and gender. Yes. But for être, there is agreement in number and gender. Let me give you the verb aller. The verb aller. All right, Mercy, you got it correctly. That's perfect. Thank you so much. So look at what Mercy dropped in the comment section. That's how to go about conjugating in the past tense. Now, for aller, I'm going to say je suis, tu es, il est, elle est. Nous sommes, vous êtes, ils sont, elles sont. That is the verb être I've conjugated in present tense. Now, what is the participe passé of the verb aller? That's the next thing. I have my personal pronoun, I have my auxiliary, I have my participle passé. So the formula is this: personal pronoun plus auxiliary plus participle passé gives you passé composé. I take it again. This is the formula. Your personal pronoun, your participle passé, plus your auxiliary will give you your passé composé. So for aller, that is an ER verb, I'm going to have ALLE accent aigu. Je suis allé. Tu es allé. Il est allé. Elle est allée. Nous sommes allés. Now when you come to nous sommes allés, there's going to be an S added to the allé. Participle passé. So for this one, for the verbs going with the allé, I'm going to make a video today, a PowerPoint video. I'm going to drop it, the link for you in your Google Classroom, for you to be able to see it in practical terms. I will make that video and drop it today, or I will teach it practically during the Zoom lecture. Either of them. If I drop the video, the class tomorrow will not hold because I'll be on a journey. But for now, that is how you go about it. Now, the same way you conjugate your aller, that is how you're also going to conjugate your reflexive verbs. Let's say we have the verb se lever. Se lever, to wake up. Because of that reflexive pronoun, you are going to use être to conjugate the passé composé. Je me suis levé. Tu t'es levé. But I'm going to pause there. Let's remain with the verb aller now. I will make a video for that, or I'm going to teach that practically tomorrow. I'm going to stop the class here so that you have time. You have lecture by 12.